Hello and welcome to my September reading wrap-up, aka the last 12 books I read. It was a pretty big reading month for me. I read 12 books, let me just say that. I know some people are out here reading a bazillion books a month, but 12 is a lot for me. And also, I would like to apologize. This is my formal and first YouTube apology that this video is coming out so late. I apologize, but I hope you still enjoy hearing about every single book I read in September. And also, really fast, before we get into the books, I want to say really quickly that I have reached my Goodreads friend limit. I did not know that existed, and I have been telling you guys in so many of my videos, please friend me on Goodreads because I love friending you guys back. I genuinely scroll through my feed and read what you guys are reading. Whenever I look up a book, I get to see all y'all's reviews at the top under my friends' reviews, and it just makes my heart so happy. But unfortunately, like I said, I hit my friend limit, so I cannot accept any more Goodreads friends. But you can still follow me on Goodreads, and please feel free to message me what you're reading, what you're up to. Okay, now for the books I read in September. First book I read is Dial A for Aunties. I love this book so much. Initially gave it 4 stars, but now that I've had some time to sit with it and think about it, I think it might be a 4.5 star read. It is about Madeline Chan, who accidentally ends up killing her blind date, and her meddlesome mother calls in her even more meddlesome aunties to help her get rid of the body. But unfortunately, she is shooting a wedding the next day, a huge wedding. We're talking like 2,000 wedding guests. And getting rid of that body while also having to shoot this wedding turns out to be a huge issue, and the book is so fun. I feel like it's perfect for fall because it's a comedy, it's a romance, it's murder. Like, it just has so many different genres that are blended so well to be like a cozy, fun, murdery read. I love that. Like, I've never read a book anything like this ever before, with how many twists and turns there were, how many genres there were. Like, I never truly knew what was gonna happen next. And I also love that all the main characters are Chinese Indonesian, and the wedding that they're shooting is a Chinese Indonesian wedding as well, so you get to learn so much about their culture, which I thought was so interesting. And yeah, such a fun, wild ride, and I feel like it would be the best movie. There is a sequel, and I have been debating reading it because a lot of people have said they did not like the sequel as much as the first book, and I kind of don't want to ruin my love for the first book by reading a bad sequel, but I also want to know what the sequel is about. So if any of you guys have read the sequel, let me know if I should read it. Okay, let's go on to the next books. And as always, if you're new here, the rest of the books are gonna jump to me right after I read the book. So it's kind of vlog style, jumping around in time as soon as I finished all of these next books. On to the next book. I just finished reading Reminders of Him, and it was so good. Colleen Hoover does it again. This book is about Kenna. The book starts where she just gets out of serving 5 years in prison, and you kind of know what happened, but you don't really know the whole story till later in the book. So for a while, you're kind of like, should I like her? Should I not? What got her sent to 5 years in prison? Could she be a bad person? I don't know. She also has a daughter, and when she gets out of prison, she's hoping to reunite with her daughter, but the people who are now taking care of her daughter do not want her to be in her daughter's life. And the only person who really hasn't shut her out of their life is Ledger, a local bar owner that she meets, who is also in her daughter's life. But yeah, such a heartfelt story. I literally cried in this book. I happy cried, which is so rare for me. Whenever Kenna was like being happy towards the end, I was just so happy that she finally found happiness. I cried. Definitely 4.5 stars. Very good book. All right, on to the next book. Next up, I read the entire Selection series, the Selection which I own, and then I read The Elite and The One via ebooks, and I love this series so much. I gave the first book 4.5 stars, and it is about America, and she gets selected for the Selection, and the Selection is a competition between 35 girls who compete to win the heart of the prince and become the next princess and eventually the next queen. And I love this series so much. Normally when I read series, I feel like I read them over time, and I'm really glad that I read all the books pretty much back to back. It makes it so much better. I'm gonna start doing that now with all my series. And the book also has a love triangle. Team Maxon for life over here. I feel like everybody is, but there's also Aspen, who is America's childhood love. And it's dystopian. I just love America so much. She has such a good heart. She's not afraid to speak her mind, to stand up for what she believes in. And I believe I gave The Elite also 4.5 stars, and then I gave the last book, The One, 5 stars. That book, The One, crazy. Especially if you've read chapter 30, I was jaw on the floor, shocked. There are 3 other books in the series that follow America's daughter, so let me know if any of you guys have read those other 3 books and if they're good, if they're worth reading. On to the next book. Next up is Him by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy. Really quick, before we talk more about Him, I want to tell you guys about the sponsor of today's video, which is NordVPN. If you're like me, you're probably like, what in the world is a VPN? Well, let me tell you. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and it's a service that protects your privacy online and your online identity by hiding your IP address. It is also confirmed that NordVPN is the fastest fastest VPN out there, which is so cool. And you can check out NordVPN at my link, nordvpn.com/JustAli. Probably the feature I'm most excited about with NordVPN is that you can access movies and shows from around the world that wouldn't normally be available in your country. And you can do this by changing your virtual location. And it is so easy to connect to the app, it literally just takes one click. Plus, they have a threat protection feature that blocks intrusive ads, malicious URLs. Basically, if it's bad, threat protection will protect you from it. And they have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's basically a no-brainer. Why would you not try it? It's completely risk-free. I know we are all surfing BookTok and BookTube and basically on the internet 24/7. So it's really, really, really important to stay safe when you're on the internet and protect yourself and your devices. Again, make sure to use the link in my description, nordvpn.com/JustAli for 4 free months with their 2-year plan. All right, let's get back to talking about books. This book is an MM romance between Jamie and Ryan, and they started out as childhood besties, but then something happened and they stopped speaking. And then in college, they are both hockey players that play for different colleges on different teams, and their hockey teams are playing each other, so they are forced to see each other again. And then they also both end up coaching at the same hockey camp, and they are roommates in the same cabin, so we've also got forced proximity, and it's also a very spicy book. So just all the elements that I love. I ended up giving it 3.75 stars. I've read so many books that I'm now in the quarter stars. Half stars is not enough. I need quarters to differentiate how I feel about all these books. It's such a cute book, and it's part of a series. The next book in the series is called Us, which I will be reading very soon. It also deals with being gay and the world of hockey, which is such a traditionally masculine sport. One of the characters is also really coming to terms with his sexuality. So it has so much heart to it while still being a fun, steamy romance. All right, let's talk about the next book. All right, next up are the 2 books that I read in my 24-hour readathon, Maybe Not, and The Spanish Love Deception. I finished my 24-hour readathon a few days ago, and I'm still tired. Like, that took so much out of me. Anyway, you'll see in the video, which is not out yet, but it will be out very soon. But The Spanish Love Deception, I loved so freaking much. I gave it 5 stars. It is about Catalina and Aaron, and they are co-workers who hate each other. They are enemies, so we've got a workplace romance and enemies to lovers. Catalina needs a date to a wedding, and Aaron agrees to be the date. And not only her date, her fake boyfriend. So we've also got fake dating. And the wedding is in Spain, so they're stuck on an international flight together. Once they get to Spain, there's only one bed where they're staying, so we've got the one bed trope. And I just like, this has every single trope that I love. Like, I just ate this book up. I loved it so much. I know a lot of people don't love it. They say it's too long, and it is 400 something pages. I do think it would have been a bit better if it was shorter, but I still loved it. I was honestly glad it was so long because I just enjoyed reading it so much. Then we have Maybe Not, which is the sequel to Maybe Someday. I guess it could hypothetically be read as a standalone because it follows Warren and Bridget, who are the roommates of the characters from Maybe Someday. And I hated Maybe Someday. I give it 1 star. So I was never gonna read anything else in the Maybe Someday world until I saw that this little novella is only like 100 pages. And I was like, I have to read it to see if I'm gonna hate this book or not. And I really like this book. It's super cute. I gave it 3 stars just because it's so short. I feel like it's hard to like really get into and love a book that's this short. It's also a very spicy book. For how short it was, there was so much spice. So if you like spice, you will like this book. If you want a quick, easy read, you will like this book. Basically, Warren and Bridget are roommates, and Bridget is like very cold, very closed off to people until Warren opens her up. And I love this one line. Warren has a theory about Bridget. Anyone who can hate with that much passion should also have the capability to love with that much passion. Next up are the books that I read in reading books outside of my comfort zone, which was such a fun video to film. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it because I read a fantasy book, I read a poetry book, I read a self-help book, I also read a classic, and I started a short story book in that video that I have not finished yet. But first up, the fantasy is Shadow and Bone. I can't believe this is the first fantasy I've ever read. Like, I feel like I should have read fantasies by now because they're so popular, but I really, really loved it, and I will be reading more fantasies in the future. It is about Alina, who is a soldier, but when her regiment is attacked, she unleashes dormant magic that not even she knew she possessed. And then it also has a romance subplot, and there's also like a bad guy. It's like all the classic fantasy elements you need, I feel like. Mostly though, I just really, really, really fell in love with the world building. It took me a little bit to get into it because in fantasy, I feel like there does have to be a lot of world building, but like once you get into the plot, you get into the plot. Like, I thought the second half was so fast paced, and I want to read the second book immediately. It's also a Netflix show, and I really, really want to watch a Netflix show, but I'm scared that if I start watching it, I'll get into spoilers. So I'm gonna try and finish the series first before I watch the Netflix show. Then I read How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I gave 4 stars. This book, like the title suggests, is like how to win friends and influence people, but also how to be a great leader, and really just about all of our socializing and the ways we communicate and how we can use that to our advantage. I think the best lesson was that people really value praise over criticism, and the ability to earn praise is going to be way more motivating people than always being torn down by repeated criticism when they do things wrong. Some sections I felt like my mind was like exploding with like how much I felt like I was learning and growing, and then other sections felt more kind of like a recap of things I already knew, like remembering to smile, being a good listener, things like that. Then I read Things I Didn't Say in Therapy. Definitely check the trigger warnings if you read this book. It's a very heavy read. It's broken up into 4 parts. The first part is about grief and sadness. The second is about pain and abuse. The third is about love, and the fourth section is about recovery. I really love this section about recovery. I feel like it was really cool and beautiful that each poem is a completely separate poem, but that the overall poetry book has its own story arc of the author going through all of these traumatic experiences and then ending up in the recovery phase. I gave it 3.5 stars. A lot of the poems were really short. Like, I'm talking a few sentences. And for me, I felt like it was hard for me to like really feel all the emotions of everything that the author went through when the sections were so short. But I've also never read a poetry book ever before, so it's really hard to know what is just like, maybe I'm not a poetry person, what is this book? And then lastly, Pride and Prejudice, which I'm embarrassed to say I DNF'd. I know, I did not finish it. I actually really liked the story. I started reading the chapters on SparkNotes and I was really into the story. So I think I'm gonna watch the movie or the limited series or both. Let me know if you guys prefer one of them, because I feel like there's so many movie screen adaptations that have been done of Pride and Prejudice. But for me, I just honestly couldn't get into the old-timey language. It was like going in one ear and out the other. I also listened to it via audiobook, which I think was a mistake, because I feel like when I listen to audiobooks, I have to really concentrate because it's easy to get distracted. Maybe I would try reading the actual physical copy, but I don't know if it's gonna be worth it, if I'm gonna like it in any form. And that's all the books that I read in September. This was a big reading month for me. I would love to know, how many books do you guys read per month? I think it's so interesting. It generally doesn't matter if you read 1 book or 30 books a month, as long as you're enjoying reading, but I would love to know what y'all's average books a month is, or how many books you guys read in September. All right, and with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Funny.